Well, I know we're just about at the top of the hour, or a smidge over. I'm sure folks will keep trickling in. But maybe just to get us grounded and then hand it over to you, Beth, we can get started. So thanks everyone for being here. If we haven't met before, it's nice to meet you and we're glad you're here. Our HR side group is more of a community of individuals who kind of come together to freely share ideas, techniques, technologies, experiences. And so in that spirit, feel free to go ahead and use the chat, introduce yourself. Where are you? What are you up to? What do you do? What's kind of interesting to you about AI? And of course, feel free to share your LinkedIn profiles to continue to kind of build our network here. So Beth White is here. Beth, I know you have other folks from your team if you want to shout them out as well.
Yes, we've got Dawn Kovach here from our business development and Lydia
Hi there.
Wu. Yeah, hi, there you go, Dawn. Hi. And Lydia Wu for our VP of Product, and Bennett Sung, our CMO. So we've got several people from our team joining today. Mindy Hankoop may be also out there. So we're here to learn from you all and to also share a bit of our knowledge on being in this space for a bit. So.
Awesome. Well, with that said, one last disclaimer, we are recording. So if that doesn't work for you, feel free to drop. You can catch the replay. But other than that, happy to hand the floor over to you, Beth.
All right. Well, thanks so much, Melissa. And as she mentioned, I'm Beth White, founder, and I often refer to myself as the chief bot because it's kind of fun. And we started a company, MeBeBot, over 5 years ago, and really with the whole notion of how do we make work more meaningful and how do we have better experiences inside our workplace? And what can we do with technology to kind of bridge the gaps that may be existing in organizations today? And first of all, it's a Friday and I know it, and you all are here today, and I applaud you for being here because I was just at an event this week called Disrupt HR, and many of you may know of it. There's chapters in other cities. I live in Austin, Texas, and I got to see some colleagues and friends that I've known from the HR world for years. And frankly, the whole sentiment is everybody was tired. They're tired. We've gone through a whole lot of change in the last couple years, and often the changes have been frustrating. And one of the presenters that did their pitch during this Disrupt HR, which by the way, I have some inspiration from using the Pecha Kucha style here today of a lot more images, and we'll kind of speed things up because it's a Friday. But one of the presenters talked about the effects of stress and all this change on our brains and how it really does affect your ability to learn and to grasp new ideas and to really have space to think. And then on top of it all, we have AI. So AI is coming into our world, but I'm here to let you know that, I started in this path of AI years ago. I was also in HR. I had left the profession for years because I was frustrated that HR wasn't moving the needle forward, and we were stuck in a lot of administrative work that really wasn't leading to those strategic aspects and projects that will really drive the business forward. So I know you're tired. I know it's been frustrating, but I'm here to also say that, the more we can all start to learn and embrace AI, the more we can really, have that mental capacity and space back in our brains to really think about ways that we can improve employee experiences inside our workplaces. And so today, feel free, first of all, put ideas and thoughts in the chat. But my goal was to have a few takeaways for you all. Not going to spend a lot of time on the what is AI. It's more about like why is it so impactful right now? But getting into what I call under the hood. How does it work a little bit more? Making sense of all the buzzwords and terminologies that have been used, tossed around these days. And unfortunately, right now, we're at a point where there's just not as many great case studies out there that are being shared about how AI is being used, to help people in their role in HR, as well as to really drive the employee experience. So my goal is to share a few examples and then really to talk at the end. So stay with me, because when we get down to the latter part of the presentation, we're going to really dig into more complex aspects of AI that I think everybody needs to know more about, because it's really the way that we can all get to controlling and mitigating the risks and these hallucinations people talk about, and potential biases, in AI. Again, if you know more about it and how it works and where the human in the loop comes into play, because we are an important part of AI. So again, we'll just go ahead and get started. We'll leave room for questions as well, and I'm just going to be monitoring my time here. So first and foremost, we really need your help. And Bennett's going to chat a link into the chat window here right now. We launched an AI readiness survey right before the HR Transform conference in Vegas in March. And the reason we did this is because, we again have been spending years in this space, talking to a lot of HR leaders, IT leaders inside enterprise businesses. And frankly, this concept of where people are is still really all over the place. And we're looking to kind of get some more benchmarking information on where people really are in their journey, because for people like MeBeBot, it'll help us learn how to better educate and inform. And frankly, it could even help, everyone that's out there working to upskill, the profession of HR and our employees with inside companies, the more we have this information. And then as an added bonus, we did a very similar survey in 2019 with Workology and another company called This Way Global, where we did an AI readiness survey back in 2019. So we're going to have the two different data sets for those data geeks out there to compare against, and really just see, what are the trends and how are we moving forward, and where are the gaps that we need to fill to get organizations a little bit more AI ready, especially around the employee experience. So really, really would appreciate your participation in that. All right, so moving on. This is a word cloud that's been a lot of fun, because we've gone out and done a number of different types of presentations. And every time we have a presentation on AI, it's like, what's the first word that comes to you today talking about AI? And let me tell you, this word cloud has changed a lot. So if you have some thoughts today that you don't see here, or you want to just add your own thoughts, go ahead and add it to the chat. And we're going to keep growing this word cloud, because there were times that the word cloud years ago, one of the center, words was fear. Fear was one of the big words that was at the center. And there was a lot of, automation and other types of words that were much larger. And now you see that everybody is starting to dig in and really think about it at other levels. And so it's really bringing the conversations up to a way that we can all start to get on more of an equal playing field and start to understand what's next. So in thinking about, like, how did we get here anyway? My big fascination is just this whole concept of computing, and why we need these computing powers is because what we're doing with AI is frankly just solving math equations, right? And there was an error where the only way you could solve these math equations is to have these huge data centers with a lot of different types of computers in there. We've been, computers that were old school punch cards, and then they started to tether computers together to create these supercomputers. And really the turning point moment was when we were able to get more accessible and affordable computing and actually have it available in the cloud, that made the computing of algorithms and these math equations more possible. And so this slide here is super fun because, again, sharing it for a few years, just talking about why AI is starting to get to be so powerful right now. Again, we just didn't have the computing power. And then when you see the Lake Michigan example here, Philip, with water, you can see 2025. So I've been using this slide for about 5 years now, and we're almost to that point where Anthropic's CEO was on a podcast with the New York Times recently, talking about the sentient computer is just about a year away. And that podcast host nearly dropped the mic. So it's coming, it's here, and it's building more momentum. And there's different types of AI. And the more we start to understand the different types of AI, the more we're going to understand our place in working with this AI inside our organizations. And so many of the, wave of AI that really kind of picked up momentum in the last year and a half was over this area of deep learning, where generative AI was introduced in large language models. But frankly, before that, there's been a lot of different types of different forms of AI, from natural language processing, machine learning, and the way chatbots interact. And again, I don't know where everyone's coming from in this call, so we're going to go through a few terminologies and kind of look at, what's under the hood. Because if it's just like driving a car, if you're going to be operating a piece of machinery, you kind of need to know a little bit more about how it works. And I think we've all been used to some very easy, accessible forms of AI, meaning AI that's in our mobile phones, that's helping us get to where we need to go through navigation. We're using AI in other aspects of our daily life and talking to Siri and Alexa. And we're also using it, inside workplaces now. But we really need, when we take that responsibility factor and move from a consumer experience to the workplace, we need to really understand, what we're doing and why. And so one of the first examples of where we saw, AI starting to impact the workplace was when AI chatbots started to become, popular with inside companies. And that's frankly the basis of where MeBeBot started. We said we want to start automating some of the commonly asked questions that employees ask with inside the business. And a lot of the core foundation of our product worked on the abilities to take what you call a natural language sentence and break it down. And frankly, it brings you back to the parts of speech, conversations from English class, breaks it down into different kind of parts of speech and gives what they call a weighted average to the different words within a sentence. And you can also tie it to what they call intent classifications and entity classifications to really deduce down what needs to be that best response for this employee's query based on the way they phrase the question in a natural way. Now, to train AI, and natural language processing, you need some machine learning, and you do need human supervision to understand all the different ways employees can ask questions so that the AI can get stronger and stronger and produce much more accurate results. So that's one form of AI that's been very popular in the workplace. Now, the newest form that's kind of has a lot of CISOs working overtime right now, Chief Information Security Officers, is because there's so much new types of AI that is been built on those deep learning aspects, and they work with what they call large language models. And large language models is the aspects of generative AI, because what it's doing is it's taking, text, which, a lot of data science classify as unstructured data, and it's putting it into a language model, giving it a numeric representation for purposes of storage, and then being able to actually serve back a text output. And so that's a little bit of the behind the scenes of generative AI and how it works with large language models. And the people that could afford, frankly, to spend time to build these large language models are companies you may know of, OpenAI, Google, you've got Anthropic and a number of others. But now what's been very interesting is that there's more and more types of language models being built with inside other types of even software vendors. Why are they doing that? Because frankly, there's a bit of a monopoly going on right now on large language model work, and the cost of the computing services to do the calculations is expensive. And it uses a lot of services and tokens, is what they call it, to process these transactions. And so, there are attempts within other entities now to create more variations of large language models. But you need a lot of data to work with to be able to really get a large language model working. And just to put a little asterisk, most of this information, as we know, has been readily available to us from whatever was publicly out there. Now there's, again, a lot of different thoughts right now, and just to kind of put some controversy into this equation, this week, 8 major newspapers filed copyright suits against both Microsoft and OpenAI for using what they considered was copyright material to actually put into their the large language models that are being utilized. I'm not looking at the chat, but I'm hoping that this is all resonating with you all, okay? And, maybe if you a couple thumbs up or slow down, anything to give me a little bit of feedback would be great. So we're going to kind of transition now. So that's just kind of like the why and the why now. And now let's talk about AI for the workplace, because the big difference with AI in the workplace is, again, we have responsibilities as employers, as people teams, to really provide experiences to our employees that, kind of go back to the basis of what existed as being in HR. I mean, when I started in HR, it was all about don't get the company sued. Don't get anybody in trouble. It was always this compliance angle. And so when you think about it, not to put any fear into this at all, but you do have to kind of think and have some considerations that AI isn't a one size fits all. You have solutions that are out there today, like Microsoft's Copilot and Google Gemini, that are what we would call more generalists. They're looking at large language models. You can perform a query, and they're doing their best guess without a lot of context to produce a result for you. It doesn't also have any, what they call, we'll get into this later, guardrails around it to know what it should and shouldn't go for in producing you that answer. So at this point in time, there's a lot of, question marks on the ROI on some of those tools because of the accuracy of the information. And at times there are a lot of companies internally that are really considering, should we build this in-house? Is this something we could build versus buy? But, we frankly did a recent blog post on this, which talked about, the factors involved in building internally, like how are you going to keep it up and maintain it? There's all this iterative processes involved. There's also the expenses of both the internal team's time as well as keeping up with the fast pace of AI. So, there are some questions and concerns around that. Whereas with inside organizations, HR teams, and people leaders really need AI that they can feel good about, that they feel is trusted. It provides employees information that they need, and it actually does move the needle on productivity. So when we start to tackle, like, what are some of the big problems in the workplace that could lend itself well to being solved with AI, so much is around this concept of productivity. That's a whole nother conversation we could have on what is productivity. But when you think about it, it's our daily lives, things that we're doing that we know it's not smart work. It's not a good use of our time. We're doing things that are often manual, and there could be a different way to do it. And employees now inside the organizations, and especially, gosh, one of the presentations at the Disrupt HR was all about the changing demographics of the generations. This need for instant information in real time and have that be consumer-like, personalized experiences within workplaces is just growing as more and more of the Gen Zs and the millennials are essentially in the workplace and will be the majority here within the next couple of years. And so we have to think to that. And then we look at also just inefficiencies with inside companies. I think the last couple of years, the CEOs were in the hot seats. If you're not making revenues, you've got to figure out other ways to make your numbers. And a lot of companies went through cost-cutting measures. And so when they did cost-cutting measures, unfortunately, a lot of times the biggest expenses are people, and they're looking at different ways to do things. And we're going to talk a lot about how, people and the technology do work together, and that there is going to be a near-time labor shortage, and there is plenty of opportunity for everyone to get involved in creating more efficient processes inside their workplace. A lot of it is about how do we automate some of the things that are just repetitive. How can we do things a little bit faster? Could be around analyzing data. And then over time, we will see more and more of the costs being controlled and actually see operational efficiency gains through leveraging AI. the biggest thing that we can't lose sight on is what we're going to gain. When we come out and we work with AI, we're going to have time to do the human-centric work, the work where we can actually collaborate more with our coworkers. We have time and the brain power to actually do more strategic meetings and have planning sessions. And ultimately, everyone is in business for not only their employees, but their customers too, and having time to spend more with your customers. And so it really does free up a lot of time, but we've got to get over that, we've got to figure out where we are on this Gartner hype cycle. So when you look at the Gartner hype cycle, there's what they call the innovation triggers. There's a lot of people who could tell you different things about when that really began, but there's been, it could have been when the cost of computing was reduced and cloud computing began. It could be when generative AI really entered the scene. But whatever it is, there is this peak of, like, they call it inflated expectations. Everyone has the pie in the sky dream of what AI can do or not do. And then they try it, and like anything, anytime you try something new, it might not be great the first time. And so there's always this iterative steps to getting to that place of actual seeing AI help you be more productive and helping move the needle for organizations as well. And so one of the things just to introduce is that, without, to get involved in using AI, a best way to kind of think about it is you have to think about it with this design thinking methodology framework. It's going to take time to understand, first of all, what's happening and what are the business problems, empathize with what's happening within the organization, defining, what potential outcomes could be, thinking through how you are going to get to those outcomes, and having the space to doing a little bit of prototyping, piloting, testing, what have you, so that you can learn. And there will be failures along the way. But as long as you fail and are able to learn from those failures and get back up, then you can really start to move the needle to where things are really kind of going next, which is, how do we use like this concept of potential human-centered design and pull together both the employee experience, AI, as well as the teams that are surrounding all of this whole equation. And so, you may disagree with me. I'm kind of curious who's out there thinking, but a lot of people in the space who are designing an AI really think about the human being at the center of the equation. Feel free to add your chats on what you think here, because it's a hot topic, right? Moving on to the next, and just watching time, so we make sure to leave plenty of time for questions. There is this whole concept of employee experience. And frankly, our internal team at MeBeBot was talking about this the other day, just really curious, when you all think of employee experience, like what is the word clouds terms that come up? And, are people thinking inside companies about employee experience plus AI, plus this whole concepts of operational efficiencies? Because we believe it's all tied together when you're thinking about employee experience in ways that really start with the holistic nature of the employee. And thinking about when companies and their people work together, getting to that level of creating more personalized experiences, being able to tap into the individuals within our companies do see better end performance results. A lot of it is because, some of you who may subscribe to the thesis that we do too, that a great, customer experience needs to have a great employee experience. So if companies are spending a lot of time and energy on having wonderful customer experiences, then, it usually means that they spent some time thinking about their employees and thinking about ways that they can drive, retention and engagement and other key factors that really help, have that ultimate successful workplace. Big question mark. And this would be kind of interesting if you guys are thinking towards this. Who owns the digital employee experience? Because we're moving from employee experience to now we're talking about utilizing digital technologies and tools. And so when we think about the digital employee experience, we actually conducted a little LinkedIn poll, where we had a poll in a couple different, places within LinkedIn, different types of groups. And, many people think, maybe HR, but what we really loved is when we saw the table starting to shift where more people within inside the organization are really owning the employee experience, because it really does need to be a shared responsibility. And if it is a shared responsibility, you do have to start to think about, what does that mean? Like, does that mean you come together a little bit to solution? Does it mean you come together with budgets? There's a lot of things that could be impacting, the path forward on the digital employee experience if we kind of know who's got a stake in it, right? So if you, again, have any thoughts on this, feel free to share your thoughts in the chat. And then the next question is, okay, so now we're here, we've talked about employee experience, we've talked about AI, but how do we bring it into the world of HR? And it's hard not to think about HR without thinking about employee life cycles. I know there's a lot of recruiting solutions out there in the market that are, doing a lot of great work with AI. They're helping to dynamically source candidates better. They're helping to produce, more informed decision-making on recruiting and interviewing processes. Onboarding employees with inside workplaces is getting a lot more, I could say, smoothed out a little bit, with a little bit of work around even aspects of what we'll get into, a little bit of robotic process automation, just even simple triggers within systems to say, this person just started, let's get them a computer, let's get them a place to sit, or how they're going to be set up for work. But it's also about welcoming employees to an organization, and how are we doing more to drive that engagement and helping ensure that these employees are getting tied into the culture of the organization and what opportunities are available to them. And that's really where, many companies, need to spend a little bit more time thinking about developing their people. I mean, we've seen turnover at an all-time high. And, if you want to retain top talent, because the cost of turnover is very high, there's great ways you can use AI in the areas of learning and development, helping with career mapping. So lots of different types of opportunities, and we're going to go into a couple different case studies here. All right, so the next one, before we do that, one little mindset shift to kind of embrace is that, I even was at a conference on Tuesday that was IT leaders, CISOs, CIOs, VPs of HR and IT. And there's a lot of people there that were talking about how really the way that companies need to embrace AI is to really think about it as being a new team member. And we actually have a fun blog post on our website about a job description for your intelligent assistant and what that job description would look like. But the more we start to think about them augmenting our team and being part of our team, the more we're going to start to have that human-centered design and understand how to pull it all together and how we're leveraging AI with inside the organizations. So another type of view of like, well, then where do we get started? And that's been the hardest part for a lot of companies out there when we talk about AI readiness. It's not quite sure what are those low-hanging fruits or user stories that make for great impactful ways that we can be helping the employee experience with inside our organization. So one way we like to think about it is in the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. If you think about the profession of HR, we're in it for the people, and we think about how human and psychology, human behaviors work, and people need their basic needs met. I mean, that is fundamental. They need to understand how they're going to get paid, what their benefits are. And so being able to support employees and helping them navigate the complexities of information within inside their organization so that they feel and get that sense of security a bit, because they're starting to understand the organization they're in and who they can lean on. So that's fundamental to one of the ways you can get started in AI. And then layering on top of it, really, or combining it with manager-specific support, because again, at this conference Disrupt, one of the presentations was about the people managers. I mean, there's many people that, do believe that really a great employee experience needs the people managers to reinforce it. But a lot of companies lost budgets and did not have the time to train some of these people managers. And so we may be lagging a little bit there. So what do we do to support our people managers? So getting to the fundamentals at the base of this, Maslow's hierarchy is really kind of key. And then when you start to build upon it, you're like, okay, what do employees need to feel connected to their workplace? I know, having done, employee surveys over many years, it's all about employees. They want to feel in the loop of what's happening at the business. They need to feel connected. They need to understand their role and how it impacts the organization. And the best way to do it is, communicate more regularly. And if you could communicate in a more automated fashion that's even more personalized, and then even be able to ask people for instant feedback in a moment, that's going to really help you better understand the people within inside your organizations and get to them in the moments that matter, right? So that's what AI can definitely help with, a lot of automation around the communications and the feedback loops. And then another big area is people data, and getting involved in how do we collect and look at people data, and what can we do with AI to surface much more interesting people data. And is there a way that with the pyramid, the top of the pyramid, self-actualization, we can get to a deeper level of self-service where the employee's really interacting with the AI in a way to share, and then the AI can actually deliver more personalized experiences back to the employee. Meaning, if an employee's searching for information about how to be promoted to a manager, maybe the AI could be smart enough to deliver a little micro training to them about how to become a people manager. So there's, huge opportunities here, and thinking about it potentially, this is definitely up for debate in a way of like the human psychology could be one method of how to get started. But let's dig into some use cases of people who are using AI right now and they're having great results and what they did to get there. So one of our customers is IGT, International Gaming Technologies. They have over 10,000 people in, about 30 different countries in the world. And they had the concept of a global people center where they had centralized support, but frankly, it was not modernized. It was not in a way that had any levels of automation. It did require the human in the loop to respond to employee needs. And again, when you're dealing with employees all across the globe, there's time zone differences, and some people did not have that 24/7 support. So they were actually able to launch MeBeBot solution in about 6 weeks, getting it powered up to support all these employees in all these different countries. And they now use MeBeBot to actually send welcome greetings to every new hire that starts. They do a new hire orientation every Monday. Every new hire gets a welcome greeting from MeBeBot, gives them additional drips of information through their onboarding cycle to help point them to other resources that may be helpful. And then they use MeBeBot a lot to help send out reminders and identify people that may have missed getting a certain process done before a due date. And instead of sending another email blast to everybody in the company, they can send just targeted, push message reminders to the employees in teams to complete a process. And it definitely helps that factor of just kind of buttoning things up and being able to communicate, gather feedback, and be able to support employees wherever they live in the world. Another case study is Cisco. So Cisco's been a leader in building a lot of solutions internally within their teams. And this is a case study that they've been, frankly, still working on today, which is, kind of a choose your own adventure career pathing tool, where employees can, build profiles of themselves, sharing what their interests and skills are, and it helps map them to some of the different internal jobs within inside the organization. So they've had tremendous success for this, and this program just continues with them. E2 Open is another company that we wanted to highlight because they went through at an unusual point in time. They went from a company of a couple, maybe 700, 800 employees to now over 4,000 employees because they were brought back private. They went through lots of different acquisitions, I think 14 in several years, which is tremendous growth. And they needed a way to be able to scale and grow quicker. And so they were able to create a singular interface experience with MeBeBot to help drive that support that not only existing employees had to understand some of the basics, but think about it, when you're an employee at a company that's being acquired, you don't know anything anymore. You're starting from scratch, and you need to understand how you're going to be paid, and what these new benefits are going to be. And so they again had such great results that they were able to keep up with that fast pace of M&A activity with a solution like MeBeBot as a fundamental. So getting into like just different use cases. So we talked about the AI chatbots, and AI chatbots are being used across the organization, and they can be from a singular interface like MeBeBot does, where we provide IT support for benefits, payroll, any kinds of questions about badges, facilities, etc. Because again, a good employee experience is making it simple for the user, right? And then layering on top of it, a manager toolbot gives a different level of support for people managers, and having them have the ability to get some of their specific needs met. And that's taking AI to another level of sophistication by understanding roles within inside an organization. This person's an employee, this person's a people manager. They have aspects of information that they can obtain that the employee can't, because they need to learn about, as a people manager, how am I delivering the performance appraisal process this year, for example. And then again, these push messages can be really fun in capturing attention in the flow of work. If employees are utilizing tools like Slack and Teams, and even potential mobile, there's a way you can send out communications in a different way. So it's getting to a different mindset. And I've had some very fun conversations, and we have some internal comms people that are super users of our product as well, because they're always looking for new ways to capture people's attention, especially, if they're working to get important messaging across. Gathering people's feedback in a quick, in-the-moment way, again, using tools in the flow of work like Microsoft Teams. With automation and pulse surveys, you can send that information out at a specific date and time and capture that feedback that employees have, from that interaction or whatever you're querying about. And then what's really powerful is the data. So every interaction in AI, in chatbot form especially, can be captured, and it can be aggregated, and you can start to learn from this data, and data that's in real time, not typical, just put it out there, autopsy data, the historical data that we collect within our HCM solutions. I mean, a lot of that information is, happened, and then we extract it and we analyze it, but we don't do as much to look at data in a real-time fashion. But that's the power of AI, is it's coming, and we have the ability to do that, and actually, potentially even use AI to look at and create analyses on that data. But one of the key factors in AI that more and more conversations are shifting this way, which is great, is that there has to be these layers of transparency and trust. If we want to get employees and workers inside companies to, utilize AI, and we need to be part of that equation as well, we have to be able to we have to understand it. We have to, understand where some of the barriers are. And if it is around the job insecurities, then we have to show people a path to where they're going next. If we're automating this aspect of something that was very manual in your job, guess what? You get to do X, Y, and Z now. And so a lot of it is just, some shifts that we have to do internally within inside organizations, and in order to make that happen. I'll pause here and just see if there's anything burning that we want to chat about right now. Bennett, I'll give you a chance to chime in if there, or should we just wait until the end, because I haven't been able to keep up with the chat of questions.
No, Lydia and I are kind of assessing the questions. I think we're good to keep going.
Okay. All right. Great. All right. Well, so this is an important topic, and again, Friday afternoon, but let's have some fun with it, So when we think about AI, and we've all now likely use ChatGPT and other types of tools out there that's leveraging generative AI and these large language models that have been trained on publicly available information. And the reason I say that is because it hasn't been trained on a lot of the information that's, you know, behind the firewall with inside our organizations. And so when you have like, you know, and this says customer documents, it could be something that's a customer related with inside your company. It could be your employee handbook or other types of information that are behind the firewall. You know, what companies are doing today is they may be layering on what they call retrieval augmented generation. It's called RAG, to give more context to the generative AI model that they're using, because it's too large. It's too large. It's trying to break it down into a little bit of a subset. And a lot of times when that information then is delivered back to an employee, like if you're querying, for example, you know, a product guide that your company utilizes, and you're using AI in a generative fashion with potentially a little bit more information, it's going to produce a response, but there's no trail to know if it was accurate. And there isn't a lot of context that it's really working with. It has some, but not as much. And so there's often times where the inaccurate information's going down a path that may not be comfortable. And that's where it gets uncomfortable when you come from a background of being in HR and thinking toward compliance, and that you have to keep the company in a good place, but you also want to make sure employees get the right information when they need it. And so what we do at MeBeBot is we combine both the world of generative AI, meaning we can take documents and ingest them with inside our system, and we apply what we call our AI wizard because it's fun. And we put our wizard to it, which is combining RAG, and we'll talk a little bit about it, and data models to be able to hone in on, you know, a succinct answer to a question that then maps to our curated knowledge base of content that we've already been building over the years that was designed around natural language processing, machine learning. And then we want the human in the loop to verify and authorize the answer, because it's the way that you give the employees that secure information that they're looking for. And we're not the only ones to kind of realize that this is the path that many companies and processes need to follow. McKinsey just came out with this interesting risk report on generative AI, maybe just a couple weeks ago. And one of the examples in this report was what you're seeing here, is that, you know, in order to apply and minimize risks, you have to leverage different types of data models, and you have to leverage feedback from the user and feedback from the business helps train the overall models. And these smaller models will really take and hone in on the information so that you can feel very confident that the information the employee is receiving is what they're looking for, and it is compliant with what the business is providing to their employees. I didn't put a slide in here, but there was an interesting case around Air Canada on a customer-facing chatbot that gave misinformation about a bereavement policy to redeem a flight. And it went all the way to the high courts of, you know, in Canada, and it determined that Air Canada was at fault because anything the chatbot produced was, you know, tied back to Air Canada's policies. And so they frankly lost that lawsuit. When we look at how to really hone it in, and as I explained in the other slide, is if you have documentation and you can apply both generative AI plus retrieval augmented generation, and then a domain-specific data model. And so in MeBeBot's domain-specific data model, it contains 5 years of different types of ways employees ask questions. You know, we've injected it with what they call synthetic data that helps mimic some of the real types of information in there. And it's really understanding the kinds of questions people ask with inside businesses. And then we map it to our AI platform that, you know, is over on the right or the left side, that really kind of helps hone it in so that the customer has the ability to verify the information. And then we add a whole nother level because we know that every customer, yes, employees ask the same types of questions, but there's nuances within inside each customer's environment where they need to have things more specifically trained. They have acronyms they use, abbreviations. And so we train for that too. And then we even give the employee the ability to say if the answer is helpful or not, so that we can inject more of the feedback back into the model and then have the business users look at answers so that we can ensure greater degrees of accuracy are produced. And I know this is a lot, but it is just showing that there can be a lot more to it when you're looking to get to that compliant AI. Another hot topic is RPA that's been out there for many years, robotic process automation. I like to think of it as little triggers, little automations that can help, and I'm sorry the slide's a little blurry, but they can help do little micro tasks. And it is very helpful when you're trying to tie the whole big picture together. If you have an AI platform for the employee experience and you're working to tie it to backend systems of record, you may need to have some RPA in there to do some of the work to get some of the movement of information back and forth faster. What's really fascinating right now is up in the top right corner is the concept of a data lake. Is like if more companies were leveraging data lakes within inside their organizations, it could really power, the AI engines to have more information to work with to really deliver more of a personalized experience back to their employees versus building out a lot of very specific APIs to all the different types of endpoint solutions. Couple key benefits, we all are out there looking and talking about AI. We know that there's, reducing information overload. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on this because I'm sure you are all kind of embracing this right now because you're here today. ROI on AI is still being determined. Even the CIO conference that I was at recently, they're still working to calculate it, but they're iterating and they're testing and they're trying and they're out there doing these things and they're measuring the iterative improvements that they're getting in all the different areas around time and cost savings. And when you're working with any different type of internal team or external vendor or provider, just ask them more questions about like, how does your AI work? They should be able to articulate what's kind of, underneath the hood and how are they protecting your employee data? And what are they doing to train these models? Do they apply the human in the loop supervision? They're very important questions to ask. Again, please help us with the AI readiness survey. It's important to get more feedback and we can produce a white paper that everyone will receive by participating and sharing. If you want to share your email, we'll give you those results. But I think we'll open it up for questions.
Hey Beth, Lydia here, just paraphrasing a question we had in the chats. Can you tell the audience a little bit more about what eventually made you decide to say, hey, I'm going to create MeBeBot because everything else that's in the market today doesn't work for everyone?
That's a good question. It really came to a fascination of what I was seeing on consumer-facing, websites, meaning a bank website or AT&T's website, the little chat bots that kept popping up. I thought, wow, these are really handy for the customer experience. I can find my AT&T bill quicker. I can ask a few questions, but they were often not very accurate. There were a lot of problems with it. And so when we started thinking, well, one of the biggest problems that I know I had when I was in HR is, frankly, I did get annoyed by a lot of the types of questions employees asked me every day. It took up a lot of my cycles and I couldn't work on the strategic things. And it was one of those pain points in the admin work that I was doing that I didn't like. And I saw the AI chatbots for consumers. I thought, what if you could take that solution and hone it in a little bit more, but make sure it's accurate. So going with the natural language processing model first and really making sure that there was an emphasis on producing accurate results to our customers and their employees was really the main goal. It's like we have to get out there. It has to be accurate because that's how it's going to build trust. Because there was a lot of negativity around chatbots, in the 2018, 19, 20 timeframe because they were bad. They just weren't very accurate and people lost faith in them. And so you think about any human psychology, if somebody loses your trust, in life, And in technology, it's hard to regain their trust. And so we just started with that core experience because we thought it was fundamental in every organization, and we could start to build from there.
Awesome, thank you. And this one is from Melissa. So she asked a little bit about onboarding, but I think one part that's really interesting about her question is there something for every bit of the employee life cycle in MeBeBot? And if so, can you just share a little bit about how you think MeBeBot can apply to the entire employee life cycle, or the workforce life cycle rather, from hire all the way to retire?
Oh my gosh, I love that question because it's so fun because, we made a concerted this business decision to focus on the employee experience when we began. There were a lot of different solutions out there in the talent acquisition recruiting space, and they frankly were ahead in the market. They were out there for years, and they can tackle that. Let's start with the employee life cycle. It wasn't too long before we started getting questions about the alumni experience and how you take it to the next level when someone leaves the organization, the employee life cycle ends. So where we are right now is we definitely take and help a lot with the onboarding experience. We help nurture that employee with inside their different types of moments, meaning we really help communicate a lot and support employees through navigating benefits open enrollment and performance appraisal cycles and some of those other aspects of it. Where we definitely have areas of opportunity is what MeBeBot, again, there's L&D players out there, learning and development companies and LMS systems that are very good, but could we do more with them to help serve up micro trainings, to help really take that learning and development to a whole different level? Sure. It's very fascinating right now, just dabbling, but role playing I don't know if anybody's ever tried to use ChatGPT to say, I have an employee and they're underperforming. I need to deliver a performance improvement plan. Can you help me? Can you coach me through how to give them feedback? The AI is getting better and better at that type of work. So again, to help augment, you've got those tons of managers that get put in managerial roles and they have very little experience. Could AI be leveraged a little bit more for that? So do we help with the whole life cycle? It's huge. It's such a big space. What we really want to help with is personalizing the employee experience and helping the employee get to information they need that's often stuck behind, various different systems that you don't have access to. And if there's ways that we can reduce some of the friction around that experience, that's one of the main goals that we're focused on right now today.
Awesome. And we just had one coming in from Zohaib, the one that I was like, ooh, I really want to answer, but I'm going to let you answer it. So the question is, how can we deploy AI on employee experience in a situation where substantial portions of workforce lacks access to the company online platform? And Zohaib, if you're listening right now, I'm really excited you asked this question because that was the exact situation I was in a
Well,
manufacturing
Lydia, why
world
don't you go
where
ahead and
nobody had Teams access. No, I'm not going to steal your thunder.
answer it. No, go ahead.
I'll add
and
on
answer
to
it.
your answer.
Yeah, and that is the typical one of the reasons that Lydia and I connected over the years is because she was looking to solve this problem within her last organization, and it's a little bit, I have to say, shameful that a lot of the AI providers right now are developing only for the knowledge worker. And the people that really need a lot of the help are the frontline workers, right? And the challenge, though, is, and this is where, Lydia, I want you to add in, talk about some of the challenges and thinking about, like, what does that user interface look like for that frontline worker? How do they use it? Where are they at when they're, interacting with this type of AI? Would you like to chime in?
Yeah, for sure. So hey, background for you. I came from Panasonic Energy. We made lithium ion batteries for Tesla. It's a 24/7, 365 operation. When you're on the shift, you're 12 hours on the clock in clean suits because batteries can't be contaminated. And long and short of it was we had that very same struggle of, okay, these guys don't have laptops with them. They have a 15-minute break to literally drink as much water as humanly possible so they don't dehydrate on the floor. And we can't get enough computer kiosks going for the life of us. So how are we going to make all of this work? And when I joined MeBeBot, which was very recently, one of the things that we are building and hoping to start deploying by the end of this month, at least for preview, is actually a text-based AI solution. So we don't believe technology should be the barrier to AI solution adoption, especially when it comes to diversity of employee bases, which is why we also have a lot of language diversification, but especially when it comes to frontline workers who just don't have the time, quite frankly, to get on a lot of the company online platforms. And from a security and ISO perspective, you might not necessarily want them on those platforms. So long and short of it, the way we're addressing it is basically taking the AI technology to everyone as opposed to forcing everyone into a certain platform of sorts.
Yep, great answer, Lydia. And again, if you all have thoughts and ideas around this and you want to share it right now, feel free to do so because this is kind of a hot topic as well.
Awesome. We have another one from Shireen Beth. Can you provide a list of types of queries your HR chatbot can handle? For instance, is it possible for managers to create job requisitions directly? Does it not yet have that capability? How do we let employees know when to go to Workday versus what needs to get done through the chatbot? And is the chatbot able to recognize location of the worker before surfacing the answer?
Okay, that's a lot. Let me start backwards forward. So location of the employee, yes. There's different ways that we can do that. We have a process where the employee can self-select the physical country they're in. One of the things we got grounded on right from the get-go is we had to support global organizations. And if you're dealing with HR content, it's different. If you're in the UK, India, US, Canada, different payroll cycles, different benefits, different labor laws. So being able to know where someone's located is key, right? So we can either ask them to self-disclose their location as part of the first conversational chatbot flow, or we can tie into Active Directory, Okta, all the other systems that may maintain that information. And, if we have to go back to the HCM, fine, to get where the geolocation is. But most of the time, the HCM populates the Slack instance or the Teams instance with some information, and we can pull from that. So we think geolocating somebody is very critical. And the other aspect of it, Lydia, I think, okay, going backwards. I was trying to go backwards and now I forgot some of the beginning part of that conversation. It was kind of around a manager
what can MeBeBot
requisition.
do?
Yeah,
what
yeah,
can
manager
MeBeBot do?
requisition. So the manager requisition, this is a cool one. This would be awesome. I mean, right now we can support helping a manager understand what they need to do to complete a requisition, but future forward, we would love to be able to do more process, like take AI to a conversational level where the conversation is the workflow process. The hardest part about that is everybody's process is different, right? So even if you have Workday, how you have a manager do a requisition in Workday may not be the same as a different company. And so today we provide an answer to a question that gives them information what they need to do. They would still have to go to the Workday system to complete that requisition.
And I think, Shireen, just to chime in here, as long as HR has some form or can in some form document a process, information, or anything in a Word document, in a notepad, on a CSV file, PDF file, whatever you can name it, MeBeBot can support it. Really the goal of the tool is to alleviate the everyday HR person, to what Beth was speaking about earlier, from the constant context switching, from the constant repetition, from the 10th question of the same variety that day, so that we can really focus our efforts on what matters and helping the workforce move forward.
Absolutely. And the queries we handle are across the board. I mean, we support IT help desk queries. So, how do I get a second laptop monitor? To, what's the guest Wi-Fi password? To, I need a new badge for the office, or, how do I enroll in the 401k? So all the different, types of questions employees have so that they have a single, source to go to. Again, removing friction of having to know, is getting a new badge for the office something IT does or facilities does? Why should the employee care? They shouldn't have to ask that question. They should just ask the question and get an answer, right? And the mobile friendly, I saw the mobile one come in. With Microsoft Teams and Slack, there is the mobile friendly versions, meaning if the employee has Teams or Slack on their phones, they can absolutely interact with MeBeBot just like they do chat with another coworker through those apps. We do not have our own dedicated mobile app. Debated it over time. There's, because like getting people to just download an app for a singular point, there may be even opportunities to white label our solution as part of other types of mobile apps that are out there too. So those are some of the things we think about. But accessibility is something that's also interesting. Just to add a little side note, I've had several conversations with different groups that, like we have one called Lighthouse. It's Austin Lighthouse. They are an entity for the visually impaired. And it's amazing how much of MeBeBot's product today can be utilized by people with visual impairment, because there's a lot of talk to text, and even rendering the back end piece, or the AI platform piece of our product can also be, we use, React, and you can even have React in a visual way that allows screen readers to interact with it. So of course, when you develop in the world of HR, you want to think more about accessibility too. So any other questions? Because gosh, it's top of the hour, and would love any feedback. That was the most I've ever packed into a session of a lot of different things, and I don't know if it was overkill. If it was too much, I'd love to know that. If it was more the pace that everybody's wanting now, that would be also helpful to understand. Well, thank you, Melissa. Thank you, Tim, for having me here today.
We are so grateful that you were so comprehensive, and thank you so much for kind of unraveling some of that and showing a little bit of how it's actually made, right? So that, folks who are in the HR space and looking to better understand have the opportunity to kind of just get a quick hit. Thank you and the entire team from MeBeBot for the time today. And we will we'll post the recap and any resources that we can share as well.
Sounds great. Well, thanks everybody.
Yeah, and
Appreciate
I'll
your
just throw in a
time.
quick plug. We're meeting same time next week. We're just going to be more of a community hangout. We don't have a set speaker, but if you want to come, we're trying to get more people involved in the group. So we'll be talking about different opportunities to get involved. So if you want to come next Friday, 11 o'clock Central, we'll be same place. So thank you.
Is it the same link, Tim, each week?
No, we'll have it posted on. I think it'll be a different meeting link, but I think it's posted on LinkedIn, so I can share it with you. But
Okay, curious. All right. Well, great. Well, so good to meet with everybody here today. Thanks so much for your time.
all right, bye.
All right.